Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening if you're in Europe. Good morning if you just cram in the morning. And welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Soccer Show. We are here to discuss Saturday, September 28th, five-game Premier League DFS slate on DraftKings.com. My name is Jack Burkart. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Burkart. Joined as usual by Ryan Belongia. Ryan, no Jordan today, and I think it just simply will not do just to have the two of us. What do you think?
I agree. I wish there was someone else we could bring in.
That's why, folks, if you're on YouTube, it's Zdroik. He's back from his hiatus. Adam is in the house. He's been grinding blurbs for, the French League, a lot of time editing player notes. It's awesome to have him on the show. Adam, how's it going, man?
Let's do it, guys. I've been listening to the shows. I'm here for the hot takes. I told you guys I'm going to do hot takes. I just did a 6-minute betting video. Check that out, the RotoWire YouTube page, RotoWire. RotoWire.com/soccer trial, but also YouTube.com/@RotoWireSoccer. I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Let's just jump right in. We have a 5-game slate here, and we're looking at the odds. This is on our RotoWire cheat sheet, RotoWire.com/soccer trial, as Adam said. We have Arsenal, who are 80% favorites against Leicester City. They have a really healthy 2.44 implied goal total. There's other matchups to talk about, but Ryan, you're the Arsenal guy. I want to pass this to you immediately. Arsenal are not really doing well. They're scoring about 60 DraftKings floor points per game, and they're allowing like 80 DraftKings floor points per game. That's like akin to what Sheffield United did last year. Not really what Arsenal looked like last year. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button, Ryan. They've had a tough schedule and some game scripts, but what do you think about Arsenal as a fantasy commodity in this slate, given what they've done this season?
Yeah, well, I think I saw that they were like 17th in possession so far this season and 16th in XG. But you mentioned the game scripts going against them. They had the early red against City last week. They had the red against Brighton. I think they had a red against Villa as well. Then they gave up possession to Spurs away to Tottenham. So, it's been a pretty small sample. So I don't want to read too much into it, but I think they're not Man City. And I think Arteta's comfortable not having possession more so this season than last season, it seems. But, at home against Leicester here, Arsenal should be able to play however they want to play. So I think the odds and the total make sense. I mean, so it's an Arsenal slate, I guess, but still different than a Man City slate where, you're not just going to jam Arsenal, I don't think. Probably going to jam Saka. But after that, yeah, I mean, slate's kind of wide open. I mean, it's straightforward in some ways. Like Chelsea, the biggest favorites after that with a 2 total, home to Brighton. I think it's possible that you don't play any Chelsea players in cash games, though. All the forwards get subbed. Cole Palmer is expensive, and, there might be cheaper midfielders that are better value than him. So, yeah, I don't know. Like Saka's an easy click. There's some other easy clicks and maybe one or two tough decisions. Like, do you play Estupiñán? That's going to be one decision. And, evaluating McNeil and Eze, that's going to be another decision. Yeah, that's how I see the slate. What do you think?
I see it in a pretty similar way. I want to pass it off to Adam. I think we agree that Arsenal's a good spot. I don't know, Adam, if you have a hot take, you can let it out. I was more wondering about this Chelsea-Brighton spot. Chelsea pieces are expensive. You got expensive Cole Palmer, expensive Noni Madueke, expensive Nicholas Jackson. They've all looked solid so far. But my question is, are Brighton good? Should Chelsea, is this going to be a closer game than we might think? Adam, what do you think about Chelsea and Brighton? Two pretty important teams on this slate.
I gotta step in with the Gunners talk here. Step up for my guy Ryan. Ozzy comes in chat saying Arsenal are overrated. Have we seen Arsenal's schedule in the past week? Look at these matches. They got a point at Man City. They got a point at Atalanta that in their first game. I think that maybe their second game. They won at Tottenham. You look back at these stats, everyone's pointing out, okay, look at these possession stats. Arsenal 16th in the league in terms of possession. Okay, Manchester City had 77% possession in that game. Brighton in the second half of that match, when Arsenal were down to 10 men, that was 74%. If we look at the Aston Villa game, Arsenal actually had 61% possession in that match. And then we talk about the Tottenham match, the one team that actually had more possession than Arsenal last season when Arsenal was dominating possession was Tottenham. So we look at all these matchups and it's like, oh, okay, Arsenal, these possession numbers. Look at the matchups. I think this is going to be a classic last season, 2 seasons ago, Arsenal team, 60-70% possession. I think they're going to dominate the ball in this one. And I agree with the odds is what I'm saying. In terms of Chelsea and Brighton, Chelsea been playing well, but you look at some of their games, the Crystal Palace game, the Bournemouth match, teams that are a little better than worse in the league level. West Ham, the goals allowed by West Ham, if you guys saw those ones, it was just like free goals that the West Ham back line just gave up to them. And then all their backups, 5-0 against Barrow midweek. Chelsea are playing well, but I think, as you said, the odds suggest it's going to be a little closer. And I agree with the odds, unfortunately.
It is unfortunate that you agree with the nerds, Adam. Ryan, are you going to put up with Aussie slander in the chat? I hate
Man, I
watching
was
Arsenal
just going to say, I mean, they just held City for 55 minutes down a man. Really unlucky not to get a win there in Manchester. I don't think Arsenal are overrated, but I can see how from a neutral perspective, it's been pretty tough to watch, especially this season. I mean, they've been down a man more often than not, and also, Arteta makes their games pretty ugly. They're tough away games, against City, against Atalanta, I don't know. So I agree. I mean, there's been a lot of talk this week about the dark arts, Arsenal and the dark arts. I'm here for it, obviously. But Ozzy can keep up the slander if he wants to.
He says the slander will never stop. And before we dive into fours, we got 3 more games on the cheat sheet. Brentford are they're all about like pick-up matchups. Brentford slight favorites against West Ham. That has higher goal totals than Nottingham Forest hosting Fulham and Everton hosting Crystal Palace. I will always like any team against West Ham. They were a DFS doormat last season. You could always target their opponent. You could always play their opponents for floor. So I think it's a good spot for Brentford pieces again. Shout out Brian and Buemu. I don't know. Do any of these matches stick out to you though, Adam? Like as far as DFS is concerned, like do you think that maybe there might be some action in the Nottingham Forest Fulham game? There might be some action in the Everton Crystal Palace game. I don't know. What do you like? What intrigues you?
Again, I'll go back to the odds here. You said the 3 implied total with Brentford West Ham. I think all those 3 games, if you go into it saying, okay, about the same number, I think on these 3 matches involving Brentford, Nottingham Forest, and then Everton at home. I think the implied total, I think we can go in just saying, okay, any one of these games could really have 3-4 goals, I think. And if you go in with that mindset, I think you maybe lean on some other pieces. And then you also look at Nottingham Forest. If you click on his profile, how many times has Nottingham Forest played without Morgan Gibbs-White in the past year, in the past 2 years? He's suspended for this one. He got the 2 yellow cards last week. And Gibbs-White, I know they have a lot of pieces. They have James Ward-Prowse. I don't know if he's actually going to play in the Gibbs-White role. But just without Gibbs-White, I know he's not in set pieces. So in terms of DFS, maybe it doesn't matter that much. But he has, earlier in the season, he was creating more from open play than anyone in the league. He was up there with the best of them. So take away Morgan Gibbs-White in this one, and what does that do to Nottingham Forest? I think that's one of the questions I have in case you come into this being like, yeah, Nottingham Forest, they're playing well. They're going to dominate home against Fulham. So I'd be wary of that one.
That's a really interesting take. I didn't see Gibbs-White was suspended, and he is really a star man for them. Ryan, which of these 3 pickup matches stands out to you?
Probably Brentford West Ham the most. I think what Adam said about Forest means that game should deservedly have the lowest total. So I like the other games better. The Forest lineup's kind of important though. Like if Ward-Prowse didn't start, I'd have some serious interest in Elanga and Elliot Anderson. When Ward-Prowse is in there taking all the sets, it's really annoying. He was bad the last game he started and got yanked at halftime. So I still think playing those guys is fine. But yeah, they're probably, going to be a worse team overall without Gibbs White. The Brentford West Ham match, though, I like pieces on both sides. You mentioned Mbomo, only 7,100. Lewis Potter's pretty cheap. Damsgaard's pretty cheap. West Ham, I think, have some good tournament pieces. Like Kudus isn't going to be owned. Maybe some cheaper attackers that we'll talk about. And I think there's some good tournament plays in the Everton Crystal Palace game as well, actually. One of my favorite tournament plays on the slate. Maybe we'll get to later.
Let's start digging into the positions then, Ryan. You were mentioning some stuff about the forward position. I was thinking about cash games. I mean, I feel like Saka's a lock. He's got one of the best open play floors in the Premier League. He's got half set pieces at least. He's going to be taking penalties. And the matchup is just so elite. So I think Saka should have 100% ownership in cash games, I think. So Ryan, we can move on to the second forward. Talking about Dwight McNeil is tricky because there's probably a trade-off between him and Eza. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, even though Eza is midfield eligible only. But in my first build, Ryan, I just went all the way down to Yankuba Minta, 4,500, taking some set pieces. It's not the best spot, but he's only 4,500. I think I can get 8 points from him. What do you think the cash pool at forward looks like?
Well, McNeil's a pretty good play. I mean, yeah, we talked about it on the last podcast, but like you said, with the construction that you're going with, if you're going to spend up for Eze and Mbuemo at midfield, then it's tough to afford McNeil. I mean, you can do it if you don't play a Stupinian, but I think you're probably going to want to play Purvis in cash games. So yeah, then what do you do? Going all the way down to Minta seems fine. It's not the greatest spot, and he's probably going to get subbed. But yeah, you could do worse for a guy that's probably going to split set pieces. After McNeil, guys that I would consider, I think you could consider Martinelli for just 7K. He's been out of form and low on confidence, but still, this is a great spot for Arsenal. And if he's going to play like 80 minutes or whatever, this is just too cheap. I mean, should be 8K for sure. So yeah, I think Martinelli fine for cash games at that price. Yeah, like I suppose I might as well just go down to Minta, I guess, at that point for cash. Like everyone in between is probably more tournament. I don't know, like, am I leaving anyone out? I saw, Adama seems like 72 now away to Forest. Like it'd be okay, but like you're not jumping at that on this slate. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I like Alanga as a shout close to Minta. I would probably find the salary to play Alanga if James Ward-Prowse didn't play, just for the set pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Adam, who are your favorite forward plays?
Yeah, I'll compare, like, if people are looking at McNeil, if you just compare McNeil, okay, let's say McNeil 12, 14-point floor, and Martinelli, McNeil 9K, Martinelli 7K, 8, 10-point floor. Would you rather want Martinelli's upside for 2K cheaper in that instance? As Ryan said, just cheaper and without Odegaard in there. So that means previously it was always like, okay, Martinelli, he could be subbed in the 60th minute because Trossard was coming on. But what if both those guys start? That's what's happened in the last couple matches. Both those guys start. Martinelli goes 80 plus minutes. So we're not really having to worry about that same thing anymore. So Martinelli probably one of my favorite plays. I already talked up Arsenal a little bit, but he's too cheap. He's 7K. He's got goal assist upside. He has a floor. If he's going 80 plus minutes, that's just better than pretty much every other option here. I like Alanga as well. He does have minutes concerns just because they have so many guys. But if you do go Alanga, I guess it goes into it that without Morgan Gibbs White, maybe he is more likely to go 90. So that is somewhat of a boost there for those guys. But again, that'll come down to what that lineup looks like. So,
Adam, I don't want to rain on your parade like too much, but Arsenal do have Raheem the Dream Sterling now, who scored his first goal a couple days ago. They have Jesus back healthy. So like, there's more risk for Martinelli than there used to be.
Yeah. Well, Jesus is coming
A
on
little
for
bit more risk.
Jesus is coming on for Trossard, and Sterling, I think, just went 90 minutes on Wednesday. So it's not. I still don't think it's going to be like, okay, Martinelli 60 minutes, Sterling 30 minutes. I still don't think it's
you're
gonna be
right.
like that.
I think you're right. Like 80 minutes is likely for sure.
That's all we need. That's
Yeah,
all we
Adam,
need. 7K.
You inspired me to pull up Martinelli's game logs, and I was like, oh man, week 2 only 3.7 floor, week 5 only 3.6 floor. On the YouTube screen, this is the DFS trends page where I've highlighted players starting only and their floor. It's a kind of nice starting point tool. But then you look at the game logs, and those are the games where Arsenal got red cards, where Ryan's mentioning they had a difficult matchup against Villa, only 3.7 points. And then but he still did well against Tottenham. He still did well against Wolves. And he managed to get an assist against Manchester City. That was a red card game as well with only 3 floor. So I think it is fair to say that maybe someone like Martinelli has a higher floor than, the 6.4 that suggests when you add in the context. So I think that's something I should adjust on my projection side.
I will say the one shot on target is worrying after looking at that. It's like, well, that's like McNeil level. So maybe you guys talked about this last week, and I agree with Ryan saying actually Dwight McNeil does have upside. So I don't want to say like McNeil has no upside. So maybe I overrated Martinelli's upside a little bit, just looking at how many times he's actually getting shots, which wasn't the case like, I don't know, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, there's been a lot of bad scripts. So, but
Yeah.
it's still a small sample. And I think there's like everyone at Arsenal is like wants Martinelli to score. Like, so, it doesn't, might give him a few extra minutes actually, even in some spots. They like Arteta wants to get him a goal. Like, it's been a tough run for him. So I think 7K is a good price in this spot.
The friendship narrative. I absolutely love it. We'll circle back to Ford when we talk about tournament plays, because I do think, because like I'm not super inspired by the cash pool at forward, like there's a couple of good plays. I think you can go a little bit more off the board, and there's definitely some options. But Adam, let's swing by into midfield. We talked about one of the dilemmas, and that's Eze versus McNeil. So maybe you can address that. And I don't know. I think that Brian Mbeumo is a shoe-in at 7,100. I played him as an underdog against Spurs, and there was great justice. He scored a goal in the first minute. I think scored 10 floors. I'm just a ball knower. What can I say? But Adam, who do you like at the midfield position at this week?
Are we sure we want to play Cavani in the midfield here? Are we sure we want to do that? No, no, I agree with you. 7,100, again, a little too cheap. He was too cheap last week, and he's still in this price range. For some reason, he got a price reduction from DraftKings, and it's struggling to get back up. I mean, you look at the opener; he was 8,200 home against Crystal Palace. He got 21 points in that. Then his price started going down. He got a brace against Southampton. Then his price went down because of some difficult matchups, and now it's still down there, which home against West Ham doesn't really make sense. So you kind of benefit from that. Eze, of course, 8,800. I think Eze is almost in the McNeil range of, okay, we know he has a floor, the 12 to 14 point floor. He does take more shots. He is creating more chances. But now that we know Mateta is basically on PKs, that takes away PKs from Eze, who we thought initially had PKs for a second there. But 8,800 is expensive if you want to play a Stupinian. I'll just get into it right now since we've been talking about Arsenal. What do you guys think about Thomas Partey here? He's 3,900 just for a cheap midfielder. I know we look at his game logs. It's like, why are we playing this guy? Is this kind of a joke? And Jordan would say it's a joke, but again, game script for a lot of these games at Man City, at Tottenham, Brighton with the red card. He got that goal against Aston Villa. He had a 9-point floor home against Wolves. I think we're going back to the Arsenal 70% possession days. And when that happens, you got Partey for 3,900. And if you need to save money somewhere, why not just go for a cheap massive favorite on a guy who he's already scored this season and has shown a floor in the right instances. So maybe a bit of a stretch, but I think if you need to save money, I think you can go there.
Ryan, what do you think about that? I mean, there's a couple other cheap midfielders. You have Jesper Lindstrom. I think he's 4,600. Mikkel Damsgaard is 4,700. If the floor is on Arsenal players are being deflated, is Party in that sort of similar pool of players in a plus matchup?
Yeah, well, I think you answered it. I think I prefer the two guys in the 4K range, Damsgaard and Lindstrom, like you said, but I would put. There's not a lot else besides that. I've been looking at the same thing. I would put Party right after that. Like if there's a spot to play him, it's here. Especially with other Arsenal guys. Like he's live for a goal or an assist in this spot. For cash, I think you probably just go with Damsgaard or Lindstrom. You can debate that if you want, but everybody just skipped right over Cole Palmer. I mean, is everybody just going to skip right over Cole Palmer on this slate? I mean, I think they are to an extent. And at forward, I think everyone's going to skip right over Nicholas Jackson too. I think Jackson's a really good tournament play, actually. Jack, I hope you're running a bunch of lineups this week because I have some guys that I'm going to make you put in your player pool. But anyway, yeah, skip like Palmer. I get not in consideration for cash, I guess, but I think he's going to go overlooked for tournaments even. 7,100 and Mbuemo is just too cheap, like Adam said. Should probably be at least 8K in this spot. So he's like a lock for cash, I would think. And then, yeah, you didn't even get to Eze. I know Jack likes him for cash. I think he's probably the move over McNeil. Like he probably has a little bit lower floor, but a higher ceiling, and like maybe it just matters more the position. So yeah, probably Eze and Mbuemo for cash is. I don't know. What do you think, Adam? Did you have a take on Eze versus McNeil?
Play them both if you don't want to.
Yeah,
decide.
You can. I should have.
If you don't want to decide,
you actually can fit both like pretty easily, but then you can't play a Stupinian, and which might be like a big mistake. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about it.
I think it's a situation where you're going to get screwed either way. If you decide between the two of them, it'll be like, okay, you go McNeil and then Everton get an early PK or something, and Eze gets 24 points. He gets a goal in stoppage time or something, ends with 35. McNeil's sitting here on 6 points because Everton have done nothing all game after an early goal, or the opposite will happen. I think that. But if you want a real decision, just go with the home team. That's what I normally do. Branthwaite could be back for Everton, which would be a boost on their back line. So I'd go McNeil just because they're at home. That would be my starting point.
How about Everton scoring? Didn't Everton scored a really early goal last week? I know it was against Leicester, but they scored in like the 10th minute. McNeil only took like 1 or 2 sets and still put up like 14 floor or something.
Yeah, the floors in that game didn't really make any sense. You guys mentioned Lindstrom. I don't even think he had a cross in that match. He won 4 tackles and he ended up with 11 floor points in 60 minutes. Just not repeatable. And then he's not a guy who's probably going to go more than 70 since that was his first start last week as well. So, because Jack Harrison would be coming off the bench for him. So if like Lindstrom's in your cash lineup, I would be worried that the opposite of last week happens and, he doesn't win a bunch of tackles and he gets a floor of 3 points. But
I agree.
That was a weird floor game and I don't know how to explain it really.
Yeah, I think one thing to add to the Eze versus McNeil situation, I basically think it's a 1v1, even though Eze can't play in a forward spot. Because like you can consider forward eligible Minta at about the same level as someone like a Damsgaard or someone like a Lindstrom. So if you're using 2 of those 3 players, okay, you don't have to play underdog Minta. You could just play McNeil in your second forward spot and play, Mbuemo and then Lindstrom and then Damsgaard. And I think that type of construction would work out well. I don't know. I don't think the position eligibility really matters unless I'm missing something. So I think, as Adam says, that's going to be a very tilting decision overall. I'll talk more about Chelsea when we talk about tournaments, but I agree with you, Ryan. You might get to play good players in quote-unquote bad spots at low ownership and GPPs, so that makes them interesting as one-off quantities. A couple names we didn't mention in the cash pool: Andreas Pereira, 7,800. He's a set-piece merchant, folks. His open play floor is not as good, and so you can live and die by Andreas Pereira. So I would rather play Mbeumo and then McNeil or Eza, who get it done in open play. I don't know if anyone wants to cape up for him in cash games. I mean, did we really miss anyone else in the midfield pool? I think the construction is straightforward. I don't really think we're missing much.
Would you play Kudus or Pereira in cash games if you, for some reason, fell in that area?
If I had to?
Yeah.
I'd probably play Andreas for the set pieces, but my inner play alpha wants to play Kudus.
Who would the machine play?
I think the machine would side
Pereira
with
at this point, I think.
Okay.
Pereira. Because West Ham don't have a good open play floor on the road. So that really hurts Kudus, even though he just gets there by sheer will, it seems like. I mean, Fulham floors are just really boosted, and when you give someone 6 set pieces, they just pop, even if their open play floor is a little bit mid. So if I had to play one of those two, I would play Pereira over Kudus, but I think Kudus is a good tournament play. I probably won't play much Pereira, period. Maybe he can kill me with 12 corner games, but it's the Jesse Pinkman gif. He can't keep getting away with it. So maybe you want to take my head-to-heads on that information. Let's move on to defender.
Should we mention Declan Rice, because he was a talking point early in the season? He's 6,900. Obviously probably too expensive here, but still on set pieces. Again, it's the recent matchup thing. No one's going to look at him because he has this negative numbers. 6,900 Arsenal. If this is the Arsenal of last season, would you have played him home against Sheffield United at 6,900?
Yeah, I think Declan's in play this week. Actually, I meant to mention him. I don't know about for cash games. I mean, he'd be fine if he was somehow your last guy in, but I think he has more upside than people probably realize in this spot. Definitely for an assist. Obviously, we've seen all the assists, but that's I was just going to say he just scored midweek.
Yeah.
On a shot from 18 yards out, right at the center of the box. So yeah, if he scores a goal or gets an assist, he's not too expensive anymore. We saw him get up to 8K, maybe even a little more than 8K for a time. So I think you can take a chance for 6,900.
Yeah, his shot was 0.04 XG right on top of the box there. He scored the opener against Bolton.
0.04? That's a little disrespectful.
Yeah, it's Opta. What do you expect?
I guess the XG algorithm doesn't know ball.
It was questionable keeping, but the keeper didn't even really get near it. I guess it wasn't in the corner either, but I don't know.
The expected goal on target was 0.16. So pretty low either way.
A lot of nerd talk going on here. I'm not sure I really care for it.
Sorry, Jack.
Let's move on. Yeah, the mathematician won't tolerate this. Defender, I think, is the weakest position of the slate. DraftKings has read Ryan and I's DMs and have priced Tyrick Mitchell up. So at 6K, he's a little too expensive, even though he's a player who's shown some good ability in the past 12 months, I think. Malo Gusto is going to score 20 or -2 at 5,800 if he returns to lineup. I think the question is to play Estupiñán or to not play Estupiñán. It appears like he has half of the set pieces. A player who in his career has averaged around 8 open play points. Tricky matchup away against Chelsea, so maybe that hurts his floor a little bit. Maybe if he doesn't get the set pieces, he might be just 6 points and not much better than the center backs. Adam, are you making Estupiñán a priority in this?
I know he's a priority for you. He's probably not going to be a priority for me, but as I tinker in my lineup, I think I'm going to actually have some extra money to get to him. So I think it'll be a thing of if what you like in forward midfield utility is is what you're going to stick with? Or are you going to have money for Estupiñán? I wouldn't do like, okay, Estupiñán outside of Saka. I wouldn't be like, okay, number 2 in my lineup. I don't think a split of sets and non-guaranteed 90 minutes playing at Chelsea is like a requirement for your team. Is kind of what my thought process is going in here.
What do you think, Ryan?
I think I'll probably just play him in cash games. He's cheap enough. Tournaments, I'm undecided. I guess, yeah. Like I worry a little about the sub. He's definitely a sub risk. I worry a little about sets, but on the other side, like he's been taking the majority of sets when he's on the pitch, and it's a pretty good price tag. So yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth between. Sometimes this is a spot where I'll just jam, and if Brighton are going to hold their own against Chelsea, like yeah, it's a good price on a weak slate for defender.
I'm going to sound like Ryan here. I mean, how many times does only one defender score 12 or more fantasy points on this slate? Because it's a bunch of center backs, and center backs can have good games, but it could be a game where Estupiñán scores 6 more than every single person in this like 3K center back range. In that case, you're going to need him. It's tough to make up those 6 points, and he isn't that expensive in context of the slate. So I don't know. I don't really like playing guys. I don't like, it's a smash spot for Estupiñán. I'm kind of just like, well, there's nothing else to do. That's always a suspect move in my opinion, especially in a tricky matchup. But at least in cash, that's definitely my point of view.
I'm worried that it's a tough spot. That's the thing, but it's a cheap price.
Yeah, I feel like it's priced in. But there are a ton of center backs to play, and that's why it's good that we have Adam, the center back whisperer, on the show. I think Gabriel is the best play. He's got the best goal scoring odds, plus 450.
Oh, we're going straight from Estupiñán to all the center backs?
Yeah, I mean, who did I miss here? Did I miss Ben White?
I feel like everyone is. I think everyone's reasonably priced in terms of the fullbacks. I mean, earlier in the season, people were playing Anthony Robinson for close to 6K earlier in the season. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is 3,800. AJB, your guy that you talked up before the season in the preview show. I think you were going to mention Munoz is 4,300. He was another guy who I think it was 5,800 earlier in the season. Now he's against Everton. So you have all these guys who are reasonably priced. Nottingham Forest fullbacks can always produce in the right spot as well. Going off the Arsenal train, Ben White, he hasn't really had the spot. He's battling some fitness issues, but if he starts, how many times did we see him on the score sheet last season? He's 5K, home against Leicester. So I think there's a lot of places you can go for fullback. And so, so that's kind of where I want to say there. What do you think about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I guess? You weren't going to mention him.
I like him as a defender. I think he can shut down the opposition's wing, but I've never really played someone like Wan-Bissaka, funny AI text generator. He just doesn't cross enough from open play. Adam, I agree with you, I think, on like playing like someone like Jedi Robinson. I played way too much Alex Moreno last year, so maybe I'll just play Munoz instead. Guys who have a ceiling perhaps in GPPs, but it's tough for them to project well without set pieces in comparison to Estupiñán. But an interesting tournament range, especially if no one's going to get that high of utilization. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said. I think Estupiñán for cash and the Arsenal guys is where I would look to. For the same reason that, Adam, you like Thomas Partey. It's just way too cheap for Gabriel. Honestly, I would think Gabriel would be 4,500 for sure in this spot. So, I mean, there's no one better at getting ahead on corner kicks. So, yeah, I'd probably play Gabriel in cash. Seems pretty simple. And then go ahead.
Who do you think marks up Gabriel in this matchup? Is it Wout Face? Is it Akoli? Or are they going to put Vardy on him and Vardy is going to do like the Kyle Walker, trying to rile him up there on the edge of the box.
Yeah, that did not work. Kyle Walker, that was funny.
Maybe Vardy's just going to scream in his face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to. I don't know this Caleb Okoli. This is just the first I've even heard of him, I think. Sorry. Faust is pretty good, though. I think he's Leicester's most valuable player.
Okoli is 6'3". He's been starting for a few matches. He was it Vestergaard he took the spot of like after the second match of the season. Was that Atalanta actually for a little bit.
Man, that's poor. That's poor from me. But yeah, I don't know who's going to mark him. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters a little. It matters a little, but I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end.
Yeah, well, we'll have to grind the tape, and maybe Leicester has a zonal marking scheme, and we're just sounding like fools who we don't know any ball. You don't know.
No, because like the answer is like Arsenal's set piece coach is like the best in the world, and whatever Leicester might be good at, like he'll just figure out how to exploit it in some way. So if Arsenal are going to get 10 corners in this match, I don't really care who's marking who, or the ball will just fall to somebody.
Martinelli, probably.
Perhaps. I think Urian Timber is a good option at 3,200. He's not going to cross a lot, but he's just so cheap. And then you could play, I think, Saliba. Timber is 3,300. Saliba 3,200. I think both less likely to score a goal. I mean, there are more defender options to look at that are cheaper if you somehow are just like short. Emerson has taken some free kicks for West Ham recently at 3K. He's also getting subbed off early and somehow still has a bad floor. So I'm not too inspired by. Oh, and one thing that tilts me, by the way, like DraftKings has called him for 2 years now, Emerson. Like and they do the same thing with Kepa. They say Kepa instead of Kepa Arrizabalaga. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but I digress. So our friend Emerson is at 3K. Christopher Ayer, he might play fullback at 2,600. There's plenty of playable like 5-point floor options, which are very cheap. Adam, have I missed anyone?
In terms of Emerson, he has been battling some I don't know what the injury is, but for like the past month, hence the early subs. Aaron Cresswell returned from his injury, went 90 over the week or middle of the week. So that sub risk is still going to be here for this match. But Joe Constrictor, Jack's nickname, Joachim Anderson, we kind of thought him going from Crystal Palace to Fulham, maybe he'd lose some value. But there's a couple games here at Fulham, 4 shots, doing a little bit of everything, 7 floor points, close to 7 floor points in both those games. And I go back to this Morgan Gibbs-White situation. So I pulled up the per 90 stats. Morgan Gibbs-White, 2.29 chances created in open play per 90. Next up is Callum Hudson-Odoi. Next up is Anthony Elanga. So both those guys are still there. Next up is Ryan Yates at 1.02. So like who is going to step into this Gibbs-White role for this Nottingham Forest team? I feel like I don't know if anyone will, and I feel like that would benefit someone like Joachim Anderson, who always creeps up a little bit from the center back spot. He doesn't have to worry about Morgan Gibbs-White, operating in the middle of the pitch. Maybe I'm just like disregarding, I don't know, Elliot Anderson, Ward Prowse, and Nicholas Dominguez or something like that. But when you lose a guy who kind of does it all in the midfield, like MGW, I think that is relevant. But anyways, long way to say I like Anderson at 3,100 for tournaments for that reason, because I think he is going to get forward like he has done in recent games.
Ryan, do you have any other like contrarian center back takes? I feel like Arsenal defenders are going to be chalk. So is Arsenal center back chalk, stuff that you want to eat in larger GPPs, or do you have maybe some other notions? You don't have to give away the whole secret book.
Yeah.
Actually, give away that secret book. Just give it away.
I'll still play some Arsenal. I still like the Arsenal defenders here, regardless of their ownership. I think good points from Adam. One thing I'll say is I really like Elliot Anderson as a player. I mean, I'm not sure he's going to do it here, but I think he is capable. He would be one that is capable. I mean, Forrest broke the transfer record on him, 45 million or something. I think he's got really big potential when you watch him. As far as other center backs, not a center back, Adam. What about your boy Christopher Ayer in the Ben White role for 2,600? Brentford. I think there are worse plays than him.
What does Jack think about faux fullbacks, fake fullbacks? Should we get his take?
I don't say anything about them anymore. I've lost too much at the hands of these guys. So what I'll say is, to all the fake fullbacks, I'm glad that you're showing off your versatility and your range as a player. It's really professionally impressive. And I'm proud of you.
Here's what I'll say, Jack. What I'll do, what I'm going to do for tournaments, like you can easily fade this Arsenal chalk, because like if they get scored on, they're more than likely going to bust, without a clean sheet. So I'll have a bunch of other center backs, like especially, you're going to pair them with keepers, especially like, each team like has a min price guy that I've already been looking at. I mean, like Bassey's 2,500 to pair with Leno, Murillo's 2,600 to pair with Sells, Tarkowski, 2,800 in a decent home spot. I thought, we might get a mention of, your boy Jan Paul Van Hecke, 2,800. Always showed up with an assist last game. Brentford, Nathan Collins is only 2,700 and like been so close to scoring a few games this year. Collins has looked great this year for Brentford. I just got to say, every game I've watched, he's played great. So yeah, I think long way of saying you can play center backs on this slate because they really only need the Arsenal center backs to fail.
Yeah, it almost won't. If the Arsenal center back scores 6 points, it will be a total wash.
It's the same. Like for the same reason, it's why Arsenal center backs are also a good play. But they can fail, and then you can take chances on these other guys. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen on Saturday though.
Yeah, I will give my 2 shout outs. My boy Jan Paul Van Hecke, the machine's favorite center back in the world for some reason. But look, I don't argue with my Excel spreadsheets. Ethan Pinnock, 2,900 as an alternative to Nathan Collins. He somehow projected well in my stuff, but we're talking about like decimals, not like much better than the other guys. Maybe you can pair him with the goalkeeper, Ryan. Maybe you can just pair him with a set piece taker and just play the best plays at goalkeeper. That's another option. Adam, who are the best plays at goalkeeper? I had no trouble getting up to David Raya. You might have to play Neto if he continues to have this thigh injury. Is this a spend up at goalkeeper slate, Adam? A lot of pressure, I know.
It can be. I think, I was talking, you can get around to finding enough money to get in Estupinian, so you can probably find enough money to get to Raya. 6K, this does feel like the classic Ederson spot where he's probably only going to make 1 or 2 saves. Again, I mean, I'm going into this assuming, okay, Arsenal dominate 70% possession, Leicester, maybe they get 5 shots, 1 or 2 on target. That's what I'm going in with. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe, Raya gets a bunch of saves, but I don't know. If Raya starts, is he the same elite Raya if he's not 100% healthy? Is that in your thought process, Ryan, or just because he starts, it doesn't really come into the thinking there?
Yeah, if he's healthy enough to start, then I wouldn't even think about it, especially in a matchup where, like you said, he might not face too many shots. Yeah, I'm tempted to spend up here just for Raya, not necessarily in cash games, probably not in cash games, but it's pretty tempting to pair Raya with 2 Arsenal defenders. So I will have that on some lineups, but I think spend down for cash and, well, maybe not necessarily, actually. I haven't really, just initially that's what I was looking at. I don't know. What do you think, Jack?
I think if you spend down in cash, you're probably doing this like cheese 2 Arsenal center back strategy and just like jamming a third expensive forward. So I think that would be like how you have to play Saka, McNeil, Eza, and Buemo type of lineup. I think that's a pretty interesting construction overall. I have the most, like the bell curve meme with like the two smart people on the side. Well, you have like the low IQ person and the high IQ person in green, and that's just spend up for the best goalkeeper. Like David Raya or Neto have such better win odds and clean sheet odds, and I think you can get your way to them. It means that they're a good play. But if you look at the cheat sheet, like Brentford are 42% to win, 24% to keep a clean sheet. And then if you go down to West Ham, we're talking like 10% less win odds and 6% less clean sheet odds. And so I think the crying nerd middle IQ take of the slate is that the best goalkeeper plays are probably like Burns Leno and Alphonse Areola. They're like 1,000 cheaper than Flecken, but you're barely, like you're trading off like marginal win probability to play one of those two. So I think they're technically underpriced. Like every goalkeeper in this pick'em should probably be within like $300 of each other, but you're really getting a $1,000 spread. So that's why my inclination is I'll pay up for Raya. Otherwise, I'll just hammer Pickford, Leno, Areola, maybe even some Verbruggen, especially if I'm not playing any Chelsea one-offs.
I just took a look, and the construction favors Raya in cash games. Yeah, I see. It's like really, really easy to get there, no matter what, whether you play McNeil or Eze. But yeah, I guess if you want to play both, then you can punt. But there's just not much else. Like you just funnels you to Raya, I guess is the.
Yeah, I think given the odds, the ultimate GPP move is go Robert Sanchez, who is on back-to-back 25-point performances, who has worse odds for a clean sheet than Matt Sells of Nottingham Forest, which kind of says it all there for
Jack. Or no, sorry, finish.
No, that's good.
Finish. I was just looking at these 2v2s. Like, Jack, would you rather have Minta and Raya or Martinelli and punt?
I need to update the machine to boost Martinelli's projection a little bit, I think. No, it's a sincere
come on.
take,
What do you think?
Now,
what do you think, Jack? Don't go to the machine.
I don't think anything, man. I'm a slave to the spreadsheets. People are asking me like, "Oh, Jack, you playing Europa League?" I'm like, I don't want to study teams anymore. I just input names and then minutes, and then like the machine tells me who the good plays are.
Sad.
I've become. It's a sad state of affairs. I've become extremely soft in this regard. Okay, vibes based. I would rather play Martinelli and punt.
Yeah, you see.
I understand why the machine chooses to project goalkeeper high and push that construction, especially when Minta has an acceptable floor. But if you start thinking about the ranges of outcomes, there's so many slates. Well, not a lot, but there's like a nice, band of slates where Martinelli is going to absolutely bail you out in cash, and it won't matter what goalkeeper that you played. And I think for that reason, you kind of just, I would prefer doing that in that case, having the outfielder who has the hammer. Raya can get me 14 points, but Raya can't score me 24 points. And I think that is ultimately what would decide that type of 2v2.
Yeah, the only annoying thing is you can only play Hermanson, which I know is like fine, but like, the guy you want.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, Arsenal suck. I'll just play Hermanson.
Overrated.
But what I'm saying is the guy you kind of want to do good is Martinelli, who's like up against Hermanson. So I don't know, but like doesn't really matter for cash. Points. But like I would like to be able to not click the opposite goalie, but
no, that's your two GPP pills, Ryan. This is you just click the worst goalkeeper and then print money. This is a time honored cash game strategy. As long as he doesn't score -6. Ozzy says Leicester's defense is bad. Let's swing into GPP takes. Ryan wanted to highlight Chelsea. I'm going to steal his spot a little bit. Maybe I'll just prompt it. Like, you have good players in a bad spot here with Chelsea because Brighton are a possession-based team. But man, like, how often are we going to be able to play Cole Palmer or Nicholas Jackson or Noni Madueke at low ownership when they're home favorites and they have a 2 implied goal total, Ryan? It feels like a good slate to target one-offs in Chelsea, good players in bad spots. Is that something you're interested in doing? I mean, Nicholas Jackson only costs 600 more than McNeil, so you're really not even sacrificing much in the construction to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't even say it's a bad spot. I don't think it's a bad spot. I just think it's bad prices compared to the other prices on other teams. But regardless, yeah, good tournament plays. Jackson especially. I just think he's been pretty good this season and just going to play more minutes than Madueke and Sancho, most likely. So, yeah, I think good tournament play, going to go under-owned.
Adam, how are we going to win tournaments?
I'm trying to figure that out right now here, Jack. Ryan, I don't know if we went over. Ryan mentioned Elliot Anderson. I don't know how much we went over him just in midfield. But Ryan has been saying, it's important, this Nottingham Forest lineup. But Elliot Anderson's 4,900. But if you go into it thinking, based off what my comments were, maybe the only player to play Morgan Gibbs White's spot is Elliot Anderson, unless I just don't think James Ward-Prowse can be there in that much of an attacking role anymore. So if you go into it with that, you ignore the recent starts for Anderson when he's getting subbed off earlier. If you go in, it's like, okay, 80 plus minutes. Even if James Ward-Prowse starts, you got to think there's some set pieces there for Anderson, maybe because JWP gets subbed off as well. If I don't even know if I'm going there myself, but he's 4,900. If it's kind of like what we have here, even with JWP, and I don't know, I might go him in cash games, but he also looks like a pretty good tournament option. I'm just not sure how popular he's going to be because, like, as you guys say, like if James Ward-Prowse starts, like he's going to have set pieces, so no one's going to look at anyone else on Forest for set pieces, and Anderson's going to kind of get overlooked with Elanga and Hudson-Odoi in there as well. So I think that is kind of a sneaky spot because maybe he just takes that MGW role and he goes 90. So that is intriguing though.
Yeah, great. I couldn't agree more actually for tournaments. Great tournament play. Like if Ward-Prowse, like you said, Ward-Prowse doesn't start, he's just a good play. If Ward-Prowse starts, then yeah, no one's going to look at the other Forest guys, and you hope Ward-Prowse gets subbed. Ward-Prowse gets subbed or something again, and most of the sets come after 60 minutes. Like Anderson was taking most before Ward-Prowse got there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it. I think if Ward-Prowse doesn't start, I think I'm playing Elliot Anderson in cash games over, he's my preferred guy in that 4,500.
Yeah, me too. He would be, I think he would be better than Damsgaard.
Yeah, him and Elanga would probably get a big boost by
Elanga too.
By that change. One thing to keep in mind. I have a tournament take. Play Estupiñán and Malo Gusto, and then when all the center back donkeys score 5 points because there's no clean sheets and goals, you'll just print when those two have in combined 10 more floor points than any other center back combination.
I can't envision Gusto
stealing games.
I just want to say I can't envision Gusto going 90 minutes. He returned from hamstring injury, went 45 minutes midweek. I just don't think he's going to go 90, but maybe he scores in the 10th minute, so maybe it doesn't matter. So never mind, I guess, right?
If it's a hamstring injury, you can just scrub that. We're in the 53rd minute, so I'm allowed to give bad ideas. I don't know. It's just tempting. Defender's so bad. I mean, maybe you do it with Tyrick Mitchell. Like, I was kind of joking with Ryan about Tyrick Mitchell, but he's a player who gets assists. And
why is defender bad? Did you not listen to Ryan talk about Ayer? Or did you not listen to what I talked about Joakim Anderson? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, what do you mean? You don't want to jam Emerson and Wan-Bissaka and
yeah, I don't want to flip the cards, and it's like in the GPPs, it's like 60% Gabrielle. That's like when my MLB DFS days when you were like seeing like 50% Shohei Ohtani. I don't know, it just feels bad. I want to go on the road less traveled, and that has me considering playing two expensive defenders. Certainly contrarian construction, and I think you can find pieces to make it work at other positions.
Yeah.
Any other GPP takes you want to get off your chest?
I have a couple of GPP plays. Just a couple 5% owned guys. If you want a couple remember, you're going to be 5% for a reason. Well, maybe not. I don't know. This first guy, I feel like should be more. Like you want the cheapest goal on the slate. We got 5,200 Sir Edward and Nketiah for Palace away to Everton. Nearly scored against United. Nice save by Onana. He was great in his debut against Leicester. I know it's an easier opponent, but unlucky not to score there. Just looked really good for Palace since signing there. I think that's too cheap. And then at midfield, it's off the board here, but you got to hear me out. Lucas Paqueta, 5K. Other times we'd be pretty excited about this, but he hasn't really been playing 90 minutes anymore. But he's only 5K. He's taking some corners here and there. He's taking some penalties here and there. He scores from open play here and there. So I think that's a pretty good tournament play. Yeah, I don't know. Those are too good of plays that they're the only two I'm going to give. How about that, Jack?
Pretty good plays. I like him. I can co-sign Nketiah. I think he actually projects well. He's showing up in optimizer runs. Adam, who's your 5% owned guy?
Well, first of all, I think you just go with, outside this Arsenal match, you can really look at any of these teams. Kind of what I said at the Open. Like I think the implied total should be pretty even in all these matches. And then the Chelsea-Brighton match, is this going to be a lower scoring one like recent Chelsea games, or is it going to go off the rails? Is Chelsea going to, make a ton of mistakes, kind of like that Chelsea-Wolverhampton game? Is that going to be, 2-2, 3-2 kind of thing? So I think there's a lot of different places you can go. 5%, I was going to say we haven't really mentioned Trossard or Kai Havertz here. It seems like maybe those guys are going to get overlooked. Havertz might get overlooked. He's 8,500. So he's a little more expensive than that 7K range of Arsenal guys.
Midfield only as well.
Yeah, so there you go. Will he be like sub 10%, sub 20%? Maybe he'll be in that area. Still less popular, and home against Leicester. Sub 5%. So
Adam, any thoughts on Ilman and Dye?
I have a so rare card, but not really.
I just see 80 minutes a couple times in a row. First goal of the season last time out.
Yeah, Everton's putting out a campaign. I think yesterday, I think Tarkowski came out and was talking about him. Deitch was they're just talking up and Dye a little bit. They're in love with him, so maybe that means he's going to keep scoring. So yeah, and Dye can be considered.
Kind of like to hear that. Throw him in the pool.
The machine likes Ndai.
Yeah, throw him in the pool. Yeah,
more minutes than Lindstrom if that's the starting 11. Maybe more minutes than Jack Harrison. And then Crystal Palace, their back line. What is it? Chris Richards just picked up a hamstring injury midweek, so it's probably going to get Nathaniel Klein back in the 11 unless Chalobah makes his debut for Crystal Palace. Chalobah on loan from Chelsea, so something to keep an eye on there in the Crystal Palace back line. I guess I should also mention, I'm just talking about lineup stuff here, but last week Kamada started next to Wharton, I think is what it was. And Glasner made an immediate sub, not immediate, in halftime because they were getting smoked by Manchester United. They couldn't control the midfield, so just something to keep an eye on there. How Crystal Palace want to play. But I'll go to Fabio Carvalho. He was awesome midweek for Brentford 2 weeks ago. We talk about Mbomo, and we talk about Wissa's out. Tony's no longer there. How popular are these other Brentford guys going to be? If it's Kevin Schott, if it's Lewis Potter, Carvalho, whoever's starting up here along with Mbomo, how popular are these guys going to be? They're not going to be on set pieces. Damsgaard and Mbomo on set pieces, so probably not very popular. And Carvalho, I think he had a brace in that midweek game for Brentford, but I kind of like him more than Lewis Potter a little bit. He got the start last week, which was kind of surprising over Kevin Schott. So that's my pick. I'll go Carvalho. I don't even know how much he costs.
No, he's 5,900. I like that call. I meant to bring them up. KLP
also midfield too. Only for some reason.
Yeah, and KLP is forward eligible. I think he's a good tournament play too. Good shout.
All right, Jack.
Good shouts all around. My turn. I can give you some really awful plays. Mikael Antonio is 3,800. 65 minutes maybe. Talk about someone who will score the Cavani. I don't mind taking shots on a few Brighton players. I'm a Chelsea hater. Danny Welbeck is, I regret to inform everyone, good now. He's a 6,600. He scored a direct free kick goal over the weekend. That's a really gross play. But as a play I'm kind of serious about that might get overlooked, Jared Bowen at 8,200. It's a crowded area, that range, but he's been sharing some set pieces lately with Emerson, a player who kind of fits into this mold, which I always like to hit, which is he can score 20 points with 1 goal. So I think Bowen is someone who is an interesting play. And if you want a truly bad take, it would be Mikael Antonio at 3,800. Never going to project well, but, goal or bust for that sort of guy. All right. I think that just about does it. Adam, amazing to have you back. RotoWire.com /RotoWire.com/. Thank you, Jordan Cooper. Or just /soccer trial. You can use all these tools. I mean, I now have about 10 tabs up, and I closed several more just, looking at information as Ryan and Adam brought it up. It's a fantastic research tool, and being a subscriber is the best way to support us and support the program and support RotoWire. Give us a thumbs up, like, comment, all that other stuff. Say nice things about us in the Apple podcast feed. And thank you to our commenters. Thank you, Poco Bear. Thank you, Ozzy. It's always good to have you in the chat, making things more lively. Ryan, is there a King of the Pitch ticket this weekend?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's a 25 and 164.
I hate that 25, but maybe I'll play it. I hope I win it. I hope you all lose, but you can all win other tournaments if I win a King of the Pitch ticket. Ryan, you're on the board as well, right?
It's nice to be on the board, Jack. Yep.
We love to see it. Maybe it will be number 2. Thank you all so much for listening. Join us in the Discord if you have questions. I might post my projections there. We'll see how kind I'm feeling. But have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good luck, everybody.